Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a single fascinating source, a detailed transcript chronicling a dramatic series of events in a world governed by, well, ancient powers and some pretty hidden vulnerabilities. This document tells a very specific story about a young woman with a unique gift and a powerful ruler wrestling with something wild within himself.
That's right. The source we have here is essentially a documented account of a significant period involving this young healer, Anya, and the ruler known as King Darius. It's a deep dive into their intertwined journey, exploring the dynamics of their world.
Right.
And the surprising turns their paths take as presented within this text. And the way the source sets the scene is key, It contrasts the seemingly simple life with the complex, shadowed world where ancient powers stir, hinting at destinies woven and the struggles of these powerful figures tethered to primal forces.
Absolutely. Our mission for this deep dive is really to unpack this narrative, extracting the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight to help you understand exactly what happened and why, according to this text. So let's get started.
Okay.
We'll begin right where the text does, introducing Anya, her life, her extraordinary gift, and the heavy burden of debt that sets this entire dramatic sequence of events in motion.
So the source introduces us to Anya in a sun-dappled village, which immediately establishes this sense of calm and simplicity, right? It stands in stark contrast to the later setting.
Yeah, a real contrast.
It paints a picture of her life left to simpler rhythms, her hands skilled in healing. On the surface, it seems like a quiet, unassuming existence.
But the text doesn't linger there for long. It quickly reveals that Anya possesses something far beyond just skill, with herbs and bandages. Her gift, as it's described, isn't, well, it's not overt or flashy.
No.
It whispers rather than roars. It's a subtle, profound sensitivity capable of mending not just physical wounds, but spirit fractures.
And this gift is explicitly stated as being often mistaken for fragility. It's not about physical power, yet the source really emphasizes its potency. It's powerful enough to calm the most savage of hearts, even, it says, to illuminate the deepest darkness.
Wow.
The text refers to it as an empathy so profound it was both her burden and her most guarded secret. And that phrase, burden and secret, it immediately tells you it's a double-edged sword for her.
You really get a visceral sense of this empathy right at the beginning of the source, don't you? With that detail about the small goat kid.
Oh, yeah.
Anya feels its distress, its pain, its fear, not just intellectually, but it has a raw, ragged sound that snags something deep inside her. A dull thrum Anna could feel in her own chest. It's like a physical resonance with suffering.
Exactly. And the description of her technique is quite specific, detailing the how of her gift. She doesn't just touch, she extends that other part of herself, something carefully veiled. It's like unfurling something delicate, sending out this whisper of warmth and understanding, seeking the life force, the spark in the other being. Her focus is on gently unpicking these knots of pain and fear. She attempts to offer a thread of her own vitality, a real giving of self.
And the source highlights a critical aspect of using this gift. It requires a delicate balance. Too much, and the whispers would start, the kind that led to unwanted interests.
Unwanted attention.
Too little, and her healing would fail. This establishes right from the start the precarious nature of her ability and the personal danger it represents in a world that might misunderstand or, well, exploit it.
And this personal danger is linked directly to Anya's internal state as described in the text. She dreamed not of thrones or power, but of autonomy, of a quiet peace her gift often disrupted. Her deepest fear, the source tells us, is precisely what that delicate balance hints at, that her gift would make her a prized possession, a tool to be exploited. This isn't just some general worry, it's a specific dread tied to the very nature of her power.
So against this backdrop of Anya's unique nature and this deep fear, the source paints her village life with simple strokes. The scent of wood smoke, herbs, worn floorboards, simple things.
Yeah, the everyday details.
But beneath this surface tranquility, there's a growing shadow. Her family struggle with dwindling savings and mounting debts. Her father, Ellen, is depicted with slumped shoulders, the debt a visible burden. Her mother, Lyra, watches him with a face that's a mask of strained composure. Her fear, a frantic beat Anya feels. The text makes it really clear that constant anxiety overshadows their small joys.
Then the narrative shifts dramatically. This simmering anxiety boils over because of the debt. Ellen stands holding a small sealed parchment, his knuckles white, the scroll feeling heavier than any stone to Anya. It's described as a harbinger of another demand, and the tremor in her hands later shows just how deep her apprehension runs.
Yeah, you can feel it. Her father, pacing the worn floorboards of their home, finally delivers the dreadful news. He insists there's no other way. The debt is too great, owed not just locally to Lord Hemlock or the merchants,
Right, not just them.
But a largest portion of it, it's not owed to anyone in this valley. It's owed to King Darius. And that name itself, the source notes, drops like a block of ice into the room, chilling the whole atmosphere.
What's particularly striking here is how swiftly the scope of their problem escalates, right? It jumps from these, manageable local worries to a distant, formidable power figure.
Totally.
And how is King Darius introduced in this context? The source relies on sparse but frankly terrifying tales. The Lycan King of a distant, formidable northern kingdom, known as a man of shadow and iron will, whose court is a place of lethal intrigue.
Yes, and then the source immediately follows with the other whispers, the hushed, fearful stories of the beast that was set to dwell within him, a savage entity that even he, the king, struggled to contain. This reputation, this blend of iron will and inner wildness, immediately establishes the kind of power and inherent danger associated with him. Sets the stakes pretty high for anyone who might fall under his notice.
And the notice for Anya's family is delivered in a truly shocking way. It wasn't just a routine letter, but a final notice from the primary creditor, King Darius himself.
And the terms? Well, the terms have changed. He doesn't want coin anymore.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's where the unholy bargain, as the source calls it, is revealed by her mother. They were discussing an alternative, a different kind of payment, one that involves you, child. The text emphasizes how these words just hang in the air, each syllable a shard of ice piercing Anna's heart, her simple life, her dreams of autonomy. Everything just collapses in that moment.
And here's a key insight from this source. The very gift Anya feared would be exploited is precisely what is demanded. Her father confesses. He knows Anya, somehow he knows about your touch.
Healing.
He's demanded a healer, specifically one with a unique sensitivity. He implies his own healers are insufficient for certain royal ailments, carefully avoiding the words curse or beast, but the source makes it clear the implication hung heavy and suffocating. The betrayal Anya feels is sharp and bitter. You would sell me, she asks, the words like ash in her mouth. Her deepest fear, the text reiterates, that her gift would make her a prized possession, a tool to be exploited, was no longer a shadowy anxiety, but a monstrous looming reality. The source shows her greatest vulnerability as she saw it, is now the very reason she's being taken.
Her father's desperate justification, as presented in the source, is framed as the only way to save the family, to save her mother and brothers, because Darius would destroy us all otherwise. Anya sees the closed doors, the path already chosen for her. Her internal belief that her empathic gift was fundamentally a vulnerability is just brutally validated by this terrible choice.
Yeah.
The source notes a cold numbness spread through her limbs, the fight just drained out of her. The title Healer for the Lycan King feels like a death nail for the Anna she knew.
And as if the narrative itself was underlining the finality, a sharp, authoritative rap sounded at the door. It wasn't the familiar knock of a neighbor, but something official cold. Through the window, Anya sees two imposing figures on dark horses, armor gleaming, faces stern and unyielding, the king's envoys.
Oh, man.
The source concludes this section starkly. Her old life is over. The cage door was swinging shut. The transition from village healer to captive is portrayed with just brutal efficiency.
Yes, the transfer is described as swift and brutal, devoid of any pretense of courtesy. She's taken by a guard with eyes like chips of granite and a grip of iron. The last images she has of home are her father's choked farewell and her mother's silent tears as she's bundled into a waiting windowless carriage.
Her protest just dies in her throat, described as a useless flutter against the stony indifference of her captors. The source is unflinching here. She was a property, now a debt, settled in flesh and fear. It establishes her new status instantly and brutally.
The journey itself is a sensory deprivation of jolting discomfort and suffocating darkness. The air is stale thick with the scent of oiled leather and the subtle, musky aroma of the Lycan guards, an alien scent that prickled her senses. Shock, the source notes, warred with a profound grief, a feeling like a physical weight on her chest.
Her immediate goal shifts entirely from wishing for autonomy to just a primal instinct. Observe, survive. She strains her ears, but hears nothing but the rhythmic thud of hooves and the creak of the wheels carrying her further and further into the unknown, away from everything she's ever known.
Her anticipated fate is grim, shaped by the tales she's heard, a king of savage reputation, a court of shadows. A shiver runs down her spine at the thought. Her only internal resolve, as presented in the source, is to endure, to try and find some flicker of hope, however small, in the oppressive darkness.
Hours later, the carriage lurches to a halt, the sudden stillness jarring. The doors wrenched open, and the harsh light momentarily blinded her. And then she sees it, the fortress, described as impossibly vast and forbidding.
The source really emphasizes its nature. It's not just stone and mortar, it was a manifestation of power. Dark towers pierce the sky. Walls are so high they seem to swallow the light. Even the gates are forbidding, wrought from black iron and carved with snarling beasts, looking like the maw of some colossal sleeping predator rather than an entrance.
Wow. A wave of despair just washes over Anya. Her old life was truly gone, swallowed by the shadow of this monstrous place. The realization hits with chilling clarity. She was a captive, and this was her cage. The detailed description of the fortress really hammers home the oppressive, powerful nature of her new reality.
And stepping past those imposing gates, the very atmosphere changes. The air grows colder, heavier, imbued with an ancient, watchful power that seemed to press in on her from all sides.
This immediately establishes a stark contrast that Anya notes. The opulent grandeur of the Lycan court was a stark, terrifying contrast to the humble simplicity of her village. The text describes vast halls with vaulted ceilings, stone walls adorned with tapestries depicting brutal hunts and ancient battles. It's a world away.
Yeah, and the Lycans inhabiting this court are described through Anya's observations, tall and imposing in dark, rich fabrics, moving with a predatory grace. Their eyes, often an unsettling shade of gold or amber, flicker over her with unnerving intensity. She feels the weight of their stares, the subtle assessment, the dismissal. It's a world where she is constantly under scrutiny, clearly an outsider.
Her fear sharpens its grip. But the source notes that spark of her innate resilience, the part that refused to be utterly broken, urges her on. Her goal in this new environment becomes to keep her chin up, to observe, to learn the contours of this new prison and the nature of its warden. It's a strategy born purely of necessity.
As she's escorted through a labyrinth of corridors, the silence is broken only by her own shoes and the guards' heavy boots. The servants, mostly human, scurry past with downcast eyes, their fear a palpable miasma in the air. The source explicitly states this is a chilling testament to the power King Darius wielded.
And in a small, desperate attempt to understand her situation, she voices a small, desperate plea to her impassive escorts. Please, I just want to understand what is expected of me.
You can hear the desperation.
Yeah, but her words are met with a cold, dismissive silence that is more cutting than any verbal rebuke could be. The realization settles upon her like a shroud. Traditional escape or even simple reasoning would be futile here. She understands she is utterly powerless by conventional means.
Her internal conflict, her internal flaw, that fear that her gift would be her undoing, it just twists deeper. What does this king truly want with her unique sensitivity? What price will it extract? This period of observation is crucial. Anya isn't just a passive captive. She's actively, albeit subtly, trying to figure out the dangerous rules of this new world.
The moment of her first encounter with the king arrives with, well, dramatic fanfare. The great doors at the end of the antechamber creak open, the sound echoing like a pronouncement of doom. A herald announces Anya of Silverwood, brought before Darius, king of the northern fang. The text notes her heart hammers in her chest, like really hammers.
His presence is immediately described as a crushing weight, a vortex of controlled power, and something else, something wild, untamed, and terrifyingly alluring. King Darius enters not with typical royal pomp, but with a chilling, almost silent intensity that was far more unnerving than any shouting would have been.
His physical description is imposing. Tall, broader than any man Anna had ever seen. His dark attire, impeccably tailored, does little to conceal the formidable power rippling beneath. His face is a steady and harsh aristocratic lines, his expression cold, calculating, giving absolutely nothing away.
But it's his eyes, the source tells us, that immediately seize her attention. They are a startling, piercing gold like a predator's holding an ancient knowing light. Anya feels herself shrink under that gaze, feeling like a tiny, insignificant creature caught in the stare of a hawk. The text really emphasizes the sheer power in his gaze.
Her immediate overriding goal in this terrifying audience is threefold, as presented in the source. Survive this audience, understand the rules of this terrifying new game, and above all, to keep the true depth of her empathic gift shielded from his discerning gaze. She knows revealing too much could be catastrophic.
Darius speaks, and the source describes his voice as a low resonant baritone that vibrated through the stone floor and settled deep in Anya's bones. His opening line is a statement, so this is the healer, not a question, immediately asserting his dominance and his knowledge of her purpose.
He assesses her, circling her, slowly his movements fluid and deliberate like a great cat assessing its prey. Anya stands ramrod straight, her hands clasped before her to still her trembling, a small outward show of control against her inner turmoil.
He then lays out the terms of her captivity in stark terms. Her family's debt is substantial. She will serve in my household. Her duties will be outlined later. Escape is inadvisable. An unspoken threat hung heavy in the air. Disobedience, he adds, will have severe consequences. Anya just swallows, her voice failing her. She can only nod, utterly out of options.
As you noted earlier, this sets a very clear power dynamic right from the outset, explicitly framing her presence here solely in terms of obligation and control, dictated by the debt and his immense power.
It's when he draws nearer that Anya feels something profound shift. The source describes a subtle shift in the air around him, an undercurrent of raw primal energy that her empathy registered with a jolt. It's not hostile exactly, but a restless, almost pain sensation like a cage storm. This is her gift, sensing the truth behind the controlled facade.
The beast, she thinks, confirming the rumors she'd heard, bringing a fresh wave of terror. But the source adds a surprising detail. Also a strange, unwelcome flicker of curiosity. For the briefest moment, his eyes seem to confirm her sensation, the gold deepening a flicker of something wilder, more ancient peering out. It's gone in an instant, his control immaculate, but the sensation lingered, unsettling her profoundly.
He makes no further acknowledgement of her presence or her reaction to his proximity. He simply dismisses his guards, leaving Anya alone with the chilling certainty that she is now fully enmeshed in this dangerous world. There is, she realizes, no escape, only endurance. She must learn to navigate this court to understand this king and the darkness that clung to him if she had any hope of surviving. This first encounter confirms her fears, but also hints at the complex nature of the king's torment.
Following this initial, pretty terrifying audience, the source tells us Anya's days blur into a disorienting pattern. Her chambers, despite being richly furnished, feel like a beautifully adorned prison cell. Her immediate goal is to learn the rhythms of this place, to fade into the stonework if possible, while fear and isolation remain constant companions. She cautiously explores the limited areas permitted to her, like a small walled garden and the echoing corridors leading to the grand library, trying to find her place, sort of.
The court dynamics are a complex web, and the source highlights their predatory nature. Every Lycan moves with an inherent predatory confidence, but their behavior towards the king is a revealing mixture of fierce loyalty and palpable fear that rippled through the court like an invisible current. Anya, with her heightened sensitivity, observes the subtle glances, the whispers that cease, the almost imperceptible tightening of jaws when the king's name was mentioned. It's a world of shadows and unspoken rules where a wrong word or a misplaced glance could have dire consequences. You really feel that tension.
She constantly feels the oppressive awareness of Darius's power, woven into the very fabric of the fortress. The source notes she's determined to survive, to piece together the complex puzzle of this court, but the sheer weight of the constant danger is exhausting.
The source details a specific encounter that exemplifies this with Lady Valeriana, a Lycan noblewoman. She's described as statuesque, in a crimson gown, but her smile, however, didn't quite reach her assessing pale eyes. She addresses Anya dismissively as the little human healer.
Ouch. Anya's response is a polite, non-committal murmur, but her internal alarms ringing fiercely. Her empathy senses find kindness, masking a sharp, calculating curiosity, a desire to glean information, perhaps to gauge her usefulness or her potential as a pawn. This encounter is her first real taste of the court's insidious politics, and it leaves a bitter taste. She realizes she has to be more careful than ever.
The narrative then brings us to a summons to Darius's private study, described as a vast wood-paneled chamber. Darius is there, attention fixed on maps, not looking up immediately, letting the silence stretch a subtle display of power, making her wait.
Right. The task he gives her is surprisingly mundane, almost insultingly so, given her supposed unique value, verifying the quartermaster's accounting for the Western territories. Yet Anya feels the full weight of his scrutiny as she begins.
And then, the source describes a pivotal moment where Anya witnesses a loss of his fearsome control. A messenger delivers a hushed, urgent report, clearly unwelcome news. Darius's knuckles whiten on a letter opener. A low, almost inaudible growl vibrated from his chest. His golden eyes, glancing up, seem to flash with an inhuman light, his irises constricting. The air crackles with sudden suffocating tension, a raw, untamed energy.
Okay, let's really unpack this moment, because this is a crucial insight the source offers us about King Darius, seen through Anya's unique gift. Her empathy, triggered by that raw energy, registers a maelstrom of frustration, tightly leashed fury, and a profound aching loneliness that seem to emanate from the very core of the king, or perhaps from the beast within him.
He regains his impeccable control in an instant, his features smoothing as if nothing happened. But Anya saw and felt the turmoil beneath the surface. She was terrified, yes, but beneath the fear and unexpected pang of something akin to sympathy stirred within her. This king, so powerful and feared, was also a prisoner of the very thing that defined him.
This is a startling and dangerous insight. The source gives Anya and us confirming that the king's curse, the untamed beast, is real and is not just a source of power or fear, but a profound torment to him. It fundamentally shifts Anya's understanding from just fearing the king to glimpsing his deep internal struggle, and this understanding will be crucial later on.
The source then offers us a direct look into the king's perspective on his beast in that moment. The whispers in his own court were growing louder, more insistent, like the rustle of dry leaves before a storm. Darius feels the pressure mount with each passing day, each veiled threat, each subtle act of defiance from those who coveted his throne. The constant vigilance was a grinding stone against his will.
And the beast within him, his eternal savage counterpart, feeds on this instability. It stirs restlessly, its power a rising tide that threatened to breach the walls of his control. In that moment in the study, the tide is a maelstrom. The beast surged, a raw, incandescent fury that clawed at his insides, promising oblivion if he yielded, promising to tear down everything he had sacrificed to build.
As was his ritual, his burden, Darius retreats to the soundproof depths of his private chambers, a sanctum designed to contain the monster he became. His goal is singular, absolute control. He will not allow the beast to shame his lineage to unravel the kingdom. He locks the heavy door, the tumblers clicking into place like the shackles he mentally fastened around the raging entity. The source emphasizes he fights this battle alone, every time.
But this time, the familiar solitude is unexpectedly broken. There is a soft scratching at the door, then a hesitant voice in a human.
Darius's initial reaction, as detailed from his perspective, is intense. His jaw tightens. His first instinct was to unleash a snarl that would send her fleeing in terror, a warning that no one should ever witness his degraded state. He is a storm of agony, his human form barely containing the volcanic pressure. He cannot fathom her courage or her monumental foolishness for seeking him out now, in this state.
Yet, the source tells us she doesn't flee when he remains silent, doesn't recoil when the air around him seems to crackle with contained violence. She stays. She just stays there.
Instead, as she somehow breaches his solitude, a strange, intangible current flowed from her. He's beginning to recognize her empathy's unique signature. It isn't an attack or a demand, but a gentle wave washing over the raging inferno within him. This is a key turning point and a crucial insight from the source. It illustrates the unique nature of her gift's effect on him, something no Lycan, shaman, or ritual had ever achieved. Her empathy reaches the beast.
And for the first time in centuries, the beast within him lessens, its claws seeming to retract just a fraction under the influence of her touch. It's calmed.
The shock to Darius is profound, a physical jolt. This fragile human, this payment for a debt, possesses a power over his curse that no Lycan, no shaman, no ancient ritual had ever achieved. It is deeply unsettling, a dangerous vulnerability exposed. Yet the source notes, the sliver of peace it offered was undeniably potent, a moment of unexpected relief.
The source notes that the fragile peace her presence had granted was as Darius knew it must be fleeting. The plots against him continue in the court, unseen currents dragging his kingdom towards chaos. The constant vigilance is still required. No, reality sets back in.
And then an external threat strikes directly. An attempt on his life during a council meeting leaves him with a poisoned dagger wound. The venom is quick and vicious, and critically, specifically designed to agitate the beast within him. He manages to contain the immediate transformation, but the effort leaves him vulnerable. The poison, a fire in his veins.
And Anya is there. The source notes her touch is surprisingly steady as she worked to cleanse the wound, her brow furrowed with concentration. Focus.
Darius's internal struggle is fierce. His goal is to remain impassive to show no weakness, but the throbbing agony and the rising snarl of the beast made it nearly impossible.
As her empathy focuses on him, trying to help, a different kind of energy suddenly arcs between them, described as a violent, almost electrical discharge. The source makes it clear this has nothing to do with the poison or his Lycan nature. It erupts from her, a new kind of power.
He feels it like a physical blow, a shockwave resonating deep within his core. It's a call to something ancient within his blood, a recognition. He sees the pain and confusion flash across her face, hears her sharp intake of breath, and the beast within him, already agitated by the poison, doesn't just react with rage. It roars in primal recognition. It's a possessive, absolute certainty that shook him to his very foundations.
Here's where the source reveals a truly transformative insight. This isn't just about healing anymore. Something much, much deeper is happening. Ancient lore and prophecies, which he had dismissed as myth, surge into his mind with undeniable clarity. She's not merely human. Her proximity to him, to the concentrated power of his lineage, is awakening a dormant shifter nature within her.
The signs, now that he sees them, are undeniable. The revelation is staggering, a fundamental shift in understanding. She is fated to his bloodline, his fated mate. The source emphasizes that this revelation fundamentally alters the dynamics, shifting her status entirely from captive pawn to destined partner with immense implications. The whole game changes.
His world, the source tells us, literally tilts on its axis. The human healer, a pawn in his game of survival, is now a shifter, his mate. The implications cascade into political and personal Armageddons. You can just imagine his mind racing.
His immediate goal shifts from mere survival to understanding the depth of this revelation, verifying what his instinct and the beast's scream confirm. He is stunned, caught in a maelstrom of surging primal possessiveness and the cold, calculating part of his mind that could only see the immense, terrifying complications this unleashed.
This revelation changes every strategy, every carefully laid plan. A human mate was a liability he had grudgingly accepted. But a newly awakened, untrained shifter mate, fated or not, was a force of nature that could either be his ultimate salvation or his catastrophic ruin. The source highlights the paradox of this new reality. It's huge.
She is now a glaring vulnerability, a beacon for his enemies. Yet, the source notes, the mere thought of any other Lycan laying claim to her, the mere idea of her being harmed ignited a cold black fury in him that eclipsed even the beast's most savage rage. Her scent, no longer purely human but tinged with the wild, intoxicating musk of a new shifter, becomes a maddening allure.
He knows with chilling certainty, as presented in the source, that the forgotten heir, his true shadowy enemy, would not be blind to this seismic shift in power. Anya, now revealed as his fated mate, has just become the most valuable and most endangered piece on the board. Her awakening is described as chaotic and untamed as a winter storm.
The source details Anya's struggle with this rapid, chaotic awakening of her powers. Her senses are suddenly violently acute. She flinches at sounds Darius barely registers. Her eyes, still human brown but holding a new, wilder light, widen at sense on the wind. Bursts of uncontrolled power ripple from her, a faint shimmer, a thrum against his own senses, the beginnings of that innate shifter power the source mentions. It's overwhelming for her.
Darius finds this struggle both endearing in a way that tightened his chest and made the beast purr with a possessive satisfaction that was dangerously close to tenderness. But his instinct also screams danger. He wants to shield her, to lock her away, but the court has too many eyes and sharpened ears, and a hidden enemy lurking.
And then his deepest fears are realized. An attack comes, not the usual subtle politicking, but a direct, brutal assault within the supposedly sacrosanct halls of his private wing. It's aimed with vicious precision, not just at his throne, but at her, at Anya. The source makes it clear this is deeply personal.
The cold, calculating King Darius, the one who navigated court intrigue with iron will, vanishes in that moment. The beast within him doesn't just stir, it erupts. It's a torrent of protective fury so absolute it was almost a relief to unleash it. But this time, the source notes, it's not the mindless rage of its near escapes. This was a focused, sentient inferno.
Its sole purpose is to form an unbreakable shield around Anya. His singular goal becomes to annihilate any threat to her. The source describes a savage satisfaction in the crunch of bone under his claws, in the terrified understanding in the enemy eyes. He moves a blur of black fur and razor-sharp intent, placing his body between her and the blades. His snarls promise agonizing death.
Her safety is now paramount, tied inextricably to his own survival, to the very future of his lineage and the security of his throne. This attack solidifies her position not just as his mate, but as the heart of his world and his motivation. She's everything now.
As the last attacker falls, Darius sees her. She is terrified, yes, but standing. And in her hand, the source details, there's a faint shimmer of light, a innate shield she had instinctively thrown up. It's weak flickering, but it was hers. She fought back.
This sight elicits a fierce, unexpected pride in him, a counterpoint to the burning need to protect. That spark of her own power is magnificent, but it also confirms she is now a larger, more irresistible target on her back. His enemies will not be idle. He knows he has to prepare his kingdom for the storm she and their fated bond will inevitably unleash.
The source highlights the paradox of Anya's nature, further here fragile in human form, but with a spirit that bends but never breaks. And now, this innate shifter power thrumming beneath her skin, wild and untamed, unleashed in moments of crisis like the attack, she's changing.
Darius takes it upon himself to guide her, to actively drag forth that dormant Lycan heritage and mold it. His goal is twofold: as presented in the source. She needs to be able to defend herself because his enemies are relentless and will target her, and he needs to understand the full extent of what she is, what she means to him, what their bond truly is. He has to know.
Their training sessions are described in secluded courtyards, under the oppressive gaze of ancient stones. He pushes her relentlessly, understanding that the Lycan world is unforgiving, where survival is honed through pain and perseverance. The source notes he will see her strong or see her fail in his presence. There is no middle ground in his world. It's harsh, but maybe necessary.
And in these moments of forced proximity, of shared struggle, with the metallic tang of her exertions mingling with the earthy scent of the training grounds, the carefully constructed barriers around his own heart begin to crumble, little by little.
Her scent is now a potent, intoxicating blend for him, a mix of human softness and the wild, sharp tang of an awakening shifter. It's a constant distraction, a fire in his blood. He finds himself admiring her courage, the way her eyes, still soft brown, but now flecked with gold, flash with determination, her resilience under his demanding tutelage. She's not giving up.
The passion between them ignites, evident in stolen glances and the brush of his hand against hers as he corrects her stance. The source describes it as a wildfire, consuming in absolute, a dangerous, exhilarating burn that defies his previous solitude. It's completely new for him.
In rare moments when the brutal training ceases and a fragile quiet settles, the source tells us he finds himself speaking of things he had never voiced to another soul, the crushing weight of his crown, the centuries of solitude, the eternal battle with the beast. His loneliness, an ancient companion, seems to ease infinitesimally in her presence. He's opening up.
And the beast within him, the source tells us, lets out a contented purr when she's near, her unique empathic gift seeming to unintentionally soothe its restless edges. Darius, ever the strategist, tells himself it's strategy. But the beast's reaction, his own easing, belies that cold logic. He's fooling himself, maybe.
Maybe. His goal expands beyond merely ensuring her survival. He needs her to understand, as presented in the source, that she is not some temporary possession, but his queen, his equal. He feels a fierce, possessive love for her that defies reason, a desperate primal need to keep her safe, to make her irrevocably his.
He realizes, with a jolt that is both terrifying and thrilling, that they are no longer king and captive. They are mates, allies, lovers. Every strategy, every thought now revolves around her safety, her power, and her eventual integration into his world as its true queen. It's a total paradigm shift.
Meanwhile, their combined efforts, her strange empathic insights and his intelligence network, are leading them closer to the shadowy orchestrator of chaos, the forgotten heir who sought his throne. The truth, when his network finally drags it from the shadows, is a serpent strike, venomous and vile, the source states. It's bad news.
And the devastating insight from the source. The forgotten heir, the architect of the assassination attempts and the insidious poison, was Anya's own sibling. A ghost from her past, believed lost, now resurrected as a monster consumed by a ruthless ambition that mirrored, in a twisted way, Darius's own drive for control and power.
Oh, that's awful.
It adds a devastating personal dimension to the conflict, transforming a political power struggle into a profound familial betrayal. Darius feels the information lodged like a shard of ice in his gut. His primary goal shifts instantly. Shield Anya from the immediate brutal impact of this revelation, even as his mind races, calculating the new, deeply personal dimensions of this war. Protect Anya first. He finds her in the library, a rare moment of peace for her, where the filtered light catches the new, subtle golden flecks in her eyes. The way the source describes this moment, highlighting her beauty and the tenderness it evokes in him, emphasizes how telling her this truth will be like shattering something precious. He has to do it, but it's going to hurt.
When he lays out the evidence, piece by damning piece, he watches the devastation ripple across her features' disbelief, then dawning horror, the profound grief that makes her tremble. The source notes each stage as a fresh torment for him to witness, underlining the depth of his new love and protectiveness. He feels her pain.
Cold, murderous rage settles deep within him. As the source notes, this is not merely an attack on his throne, it is a deliberate, cruel strike against his mate by her own blood. It's personal now, deeply personal.
Anya whispers, how? Why? He has no answers, only the grim certainty of the betrayal. His objective is clear. Obliterate this threat. But first, he has to guide Anya through this emotional maelstrom. The conflict is no longer solely political. It has become intensely, irrevocably personal. This, the source tells us, is a betrayal of the deepest kind, aimed at the very heart of what he now holds most dear her.
His resolve to protect Anya, to destroy this enemy who shares her bloodline, becomes immutable. He will not allow her to face this alone. They're in this together now.
As if underlining the threat, a messenger arrives bearing a scroll sealed with an unfamiliar crest that now screams of treachery. The source describes it as a taunt, a direct threat against Anya, an arrogant challenge from her sibling, who has clearly underestimated his wrath, his determination to protect what is irrevocably, absolutely his. The game, the source concludes, has changed, and the stakes are now Anya's life, her very soul.
The insidious counterattack orchestrated by Anya's sibling begins almost immediately. The information Darius' dying enemy had gasped out a hidden vulnerability, a chink in the Lycan King's formidable armor related to his beast, becomes a poisoned dart in the hands of Anya's sibling. They strike with insidious precision.
This attack isn't a direct assault with blades, as presented in the source, but something far more cunning. A subtle toxin, perhaps introduced into Darius' food or wine, or maybe a dark piece of magic woven into an innocent-looking gift. Whatever its nature, the effect is devastating, targeting the beast itself.
So the sibling has found a way, as the source details, to bypass his physical strength and strike at the very core of his being and power. At the beast he struggles to control. Darius, who had seemed an indomitable force of nature, is weakened. His immense strength wanes, his golden eyes cloud with a feverish light, and the beast within him, usually a contained inferno, now feels like a fractured, raging storm. His control is precarious and terrifying. He's really in trouble.
Anya's primary goal, her entire world, narrows once again, this time to saving him. The source depicts her working frantically in his chambers, the scent of rare herbs mingling with the thick air of her own fear. Everything is focused on him.
She pours her empathic gift, her innate shifter energy, that new, untamed power she's only just begun to understand, into him, trying to locate the source of the affliction, to soothe the rampaging beast that thrashes against his will.
But her attempts feel like cupped hands trying to bail out a sinking ship. The source notes the poison or curse is too insidious, too deeply woven into his very being. Her confidence, so newly found in their shared training and bond, begins to crumble. Desperation gnaws at her. She's a healer, this is her purpose, yet she's failing him, failing them, and the source emphasizes her growing despair. It's heartbreaking.
Darius, even in his weakened state, fights with terrifying ferocity to maintain control. His growls are deeper, laced with pain, and his body spasms, claws unshathing involuntarily. The source describes him looking at her, his eyes a battleground of torment and a desperate plea for her safety, for her to stay away, even as another part of him, the beast, seems to crave her presence as an anchor. It's a terrible conflict within him.
The antagonist, her own sibling, adds another layer of cruelty, finding a way to strike at the core and to mock Anya's every desperate effort. A small, exquisitely carved bird arrives at her chamber window, bearing a tiny blood-red ribbon. There is no note, but the source states the message is clear. A chilling taunt. See how easily he breaks, see how little your love, your healing truly matters.
Oh, that's just vile. The cruelty of this gesture is a physical blow, stealing her breath, leaving her to stare at the innocent-seeming token, now a symbol of her growing despair.
The insidious campaign orchestrated by Anya's sibling extends beyond targeting Darius. As detailed in the source, it spreads like a contagion through the court itself. Whispers, carefully planted and nurtured, begin to circulate, targeting Anya directly, sowing doubt.
The content of the whispers, the source notes, is focused on Anya. She's the human mate, a forbidden union. Her sudden shifter nature is a dark omen, a sign of instability brought upon the king and the kingdom. They're turning everyone against her.
Anya feels the palpable shift in the atmosphere of the court. The Lycan courters, who had once offered grudging respect, now avert their gazes, their faces shuddered. The few tentative alliances she had begun to form grow strained, their interactions laced with uncomfortable caution. Her goal of simply surviving morphs into a desperate attempt to hold on to any shred of credibility, any wisp of trust, but it feels, as the source describes, like grasping at smoke. She's becoming isolated.
Darius, hampered by the poison still warring within him and the increasing volatility of his beast, struggles to maintain order. His pronouncements lack their usual iron authority, his absences from courtly duties grow more frequent, creating a power vacuum. Things are falling apart.
And in that vacuum, Anya's sibling masterfully leverages their advantage. The source states they present themselves not as a usurper, but as a concerned party, a voice of reason amidst the growing chaos. They subtly fan the flames of doubt against Darius and, more pointedly, against Anya. Very clever, very manipulative.
She becomes the scapegoat for the kingdom's instability. The source portrays her as seen by the court, the human who had supposedly bewitched their king, whose unnatural transformation was a blight upon his reign. It's all her fault, according to the whispers.
Anya feels responsible, a crushing weight of guilt settling upon her. Her internal flaw, the deep-seated fear that her gift, her very nature, would bring harm and discord, is brutally triggered and magnified 100-fold by the whispers and fearful glances. She sees the doubt in the eyes of the Lycans, hears the fear in their hushed tones, and questions herself. Was she the cause of all this? Had her presence, her fated bond with Darius, truly brought a curse upon them? Her self-worth just plummets. She tries to project strength to assist Darius, but her efforts feel clumsy, ineffective. Her human origins, the source implies, are a glaring mark against her in this world of ancient power and rigid tradition.
The lowest blow comes in the form of a clandestine meeting, an appeal from her sibling delivered through a terrified, unwilling servant. This is just twisting the knife further.
It's a twisted message, as described in the source. It invokes a shared past Anya barely remembered, manipulating her emotions by painting Darius as the true monster, the source of all their suffering. It offers her a place within a new, healed family, a new order free from the king's tyranny. Joyous, it says.
The manipulation is blatant to us, as we've seen the siblings' true ambition through Darius's eyes. Yet the source shows it strikes at Anya's most vulnerable point, her fractured sense of belonging, her desperate longing for a family that wasn't a source of betrayal and pain. It targets her deepest wound.
The isolation she feels is now complete. The support she and Darius could count on is wavering, and her sibling, it seems, is effortlessly winning hearts and minds through masterful deceit and manipulation of fear. It looks really bad.
The all is lost moment, the source tells us, crashes down upon Anya with the force of a collapsing mountain. Darius, already weakened and battling the poison, is ambushed, not by an outside army, but by a select few of his own council members, their faces grim with a twisted sense of duty, traitors swayed by her siblings' insidious rhetoric, betrayed by his own people.
Anya witnesses it from the gallery overlooking the throne room. A scream is trapped in her throat, her limbs frozen in horrified disbelief. Her goal, her desperate, all-consuming need to protect him, is shattered by her powerlessness in that moment. There's nothing she can do.
Darius fights like the caged god he is described as. The beast erupts in a torrent of uncontrolled, agonized fury, but he is outnumbered, already compromised by the toxin weakening him from within.
She sees him fall, not dead, the source makes clear, but subdued, ensnared by silver chains that sizzle against his skin, specifically designed to contain a Lycan. His roars of defiance are choked into agonizing whimpers. It's a terrible sight.
Her sibling appears then, stepping from the shadows with an air of triumphant serenity. They survey the scene. Darius, a fallen king, his proud Lycans either complicit or cowed into submission. They've won, it seems.
And then those cold, familiar eyes, so like her own, yet so utterly devoid of warmth, turn to Anya. The source quotes their words, "Such a tragedy, little sister." Their voice echoes in the vast, suddenly silent throne room. All this chaos, all this pain, all because of a flawed king and his unsuitable attachment. It's a final, cruel twist of the knife, blaming her.
Anya feels a failure so profound, it threatens to extinguish the last embers of her spirit. She had tried to heal, to help, to love, and all she had brought, she feels in that moment, was ruin. The weight of her past, her family selling her, her own blood betraying her, and the impossible, devastating present crush her. It's almost too much to bear.
Her deepest misbelief that she was inherently flawed and destined to cause pain, that her gift was a magnet for disaster, becomes a suffocating certainty in the face of Darius's defeat and her siblings' words. This is her lowest point.
Her sibling offers her a terrible choice, their voice deceptively gentle, seemingly offering a way out. "Join me, Anya, help me rebuild."
The terms are cruel, as presented in the source. Her king is broken, but perhaps with her unique talents he can be salvaged, a puppet of course, but alive. Or she can watch him fade, watch his beast consume him entirely in a cage fit for the monster he truly is. An impossible choice.
Despair, utter and absolute, washes over Anya. She looks at Darius, chained and bleeding, the sound of his pain breathing a death knell to her hope. She looks at her sibling, the architect of all this suffering, offering a poisoned chalice of family. There is no right choice, only varying degrees of agony.
The silence in the throne room is broken only by a distant, anguished howl. The sand of Darius's beast, trapped and tormented by the silver and poison, mirroring the desolation in her own soul. The source makes it clear that all truly seemed lost in this moment. This is rock bottom.
But the source tells us something shifts in that silence. The throne room, heavy with despair, becomes a crucible for Anya. Despair has hollowed her out, leaving a brittle shell but not breaking the spirit underneath. There's still something there.
Her siblings' manipulation was based on her fear, on twisting her compassion into a weapon against herself and Darius. But through the suffocating fog of despair, a tiny, defiant spark ignites. Something changes.
The source points to the catalyst. Darius's love for her, the fierce, unwavering protectiveness she'd seen in his golden eyes, even when his beast raged, that was real. That was strength, not a weakness to be exploited, as her sibling claimed. She remembers the feel of his hand in hers during their training, the shared vulnerability in quiet moments, the raw, possessive tenderness when his beast had cornered her, not with violence, but with a desperate, soulful longing. These memories, the source emphasizes, are a lifeline pulling her back from the brink. They matter.
As her gaze drifts, it falls upon the ancient tapestries lining the throne room depicting Lycan legends. One in particular draws her eye, sparking recognition. A tale of a fabled moon called Luna, whose unique bond with her alpha king could soothe any malady, amplify any strength, and expose any deceit. It was just a story she'd seen, yet the source implies it plants a seed, an idea.
And then, from a hidden alcove, Marcus materializes, the young guard she had healed earlier, the one who had shown her small kindnesses. His face is grim but resolute. He presses a small, worn, leather-bound journal into her hand. "My grandmother was a keeper of old lore, my lady," he whispers, his eyes darting nervously. He spoke of bonds that can sever even the darkest enchantments, of a sibling's power turned inward if the heart is true. Hope arrives unexpectedly.
This moment provides a critical piece of information from the source, connecting the ancient lore to her specific situation and suggesting a path forward based on understanding the deeper nature of their bond and the siblings' weakness. Anya's fingers tighten around the journal. This is the crucial insight. Her siblings' power is based on perverting love, on twisting bonds. But what if her own bond with Darius, faded and fierce, is the key? What if her empathy isn't a vulnerability, but the very weapon they needed all along? Could it be?
A steely resolve begins to solidify within her, displacing the despair. Her goal is sharpened. No longer just to save Darius, but to reclaim her own agency, to protect the fragile hope of their future, and to stop her siblings' reign of terror. The source shows her decision. She will not be a pawn, she will be a queen. She's fighting back now.
Her internal flaw, the fear of her own unique nature, begins to recede. It is not a curse, but her strength. She looks at the distant, chained form of Darius, and a new, fierce love blazes within her. "Not like this," she whispers to the oppressive silence. Determination takes over.
Her first defiant action, as detailed in the source, is a silent promise. Then she sends a coded message through Marcus, a desperate call to the few Lycans she knows remain loyal to their true king, those whose own senses might be receptive to the truth she now holds, reaching out for help.
This call to loyal Lycans is a vital step mentioned in the source, marking the beginning of their counterplan. The climb back from despair has begun. Hope, once a fragile ember, now burns with a steady, determined light within Anya, fueled by the knowledge from the ancient lore. There's chance.
Following Marcus's hushed directions, she navigates the labyrinthine servant passages of the fortress, the small worn journal clutched tight in her hand. Reaching Darius is a risk that makes her heart pound, but the thought of leaving him to her siblings' mercy is unbearable. She has to try.
He is being held in the old dungeons, a place reeking of damp stone and forgotten despair. Darius is bound by the silver chains, conscious, his golden eyes blazing with a defiant, albeit weakened fire. She slips past the distracted, overconfident guards her sibling had posted, highlighting their arrogance and assuming victory. They think they've already won.
His voice is a rough rasp, laced with pain and a fierce protective urgency even in his state. "You should not be here, it's too dangerous." But she's not backing down. The source quotes her response, firm and resolute. "Leaving you here is acceptable." She's changed.
Her goal is clear, free him, heal him, and then together, fight. She kneels beside him, her empathy reaching out, assessing the lingering effects of the poison, the raw burn of the silver, the agonizing strain on his beast. He sees the resolve in her eyes, the lack of fear, and his own strength. His determination is palpable, fueled by her presence. She gives him strength.
"I know things," she says softly, opening the journal Marcus gave her. The source quotes her, explaining lore about our kind of bond, about how a true makes empathy, our connection, can counteract twisted power, especially power rooted in broken kinship. The lore holds the key.
This is where that ancient lore isn't just stories. The source reveals it holds the key to turning the tide, suggesting their unique connection, their fated bond, can be used as a weapon against power rooted in betrayal. Together, in the dim, oppressive light of the dungeon, they devise a plan. It is risky, audacious, relying on her unique abilities and Darius's knowledge of his court and his siblings' likely tactics. They will not meet her sibling on their terms in a battle of brute force where Darius is still disadvantaged by the poison and chains. Instead, they will use her siblings' arrogance, their overconfidence against them, turn the tables.
The plan, as described in the source, involves Anya feigning compliance, presenting herself as a broken woman ready to bargain. This is the bait. She will lure her sibling to a place of her choosing, the ancient sunstone chamber, The source describes this as a place of Lycan ritual where the old magic is said to be strong, and critically, where the truth had a way of revealing itself. A place of power and truth.
The strategy is nuanced and relies on Anya's unique gift. In the Sunstone Chamber, Anya will use her empathic connection not just to soothe Darius's beast, preparing him to fight, but to project the truth of her siblings' deceit, their malice, for any wavering Lycans present to feel, to know deep in their core. Darius, feigning greater weakness than he possesses, will be the bait, then the hammer when the moment is right. It's a complex strategy.
They rally their few remaining trusted allies through Marcus, those loyal to Darius not just for his power, but for the king he truly was before the plots and the torment. The source notes each shared glance, each whispered pledge solidifies their bond, their shared purpose. They are focused, driven, their fated connection now refined into an unbreakable weapon. They are ready to risk everything, united.
The sibling, smud in their apparent victory, is preparing for their final move to seize total control, utterly unaware, the source emphasizes, that the true king and his unexpected queen are setting a trap of their own, using the very things a sibling sought to exploit. Anya's connection to Darius and the ancient power of their bond. Their arrogance will be their downfall.
The confrontation takes place in the Sunstone Chamber. The air, the source tells us, is thick with ancient power, the massive amber-hued crystal at its center, pulsing with a faint internal light. Anya chose this place carefully. It's a sacred heart within the fortress, a place where Lycan oaths were sworn and judgments rendered, where deceit was said to wither under the stone's unwavering gaze. The perfect stage.
Her sibling, lured by Anya's feigned message of surrender and a desperate plea to discuss terms for Darius's life, arrives with an escort of their most trusted, hardened loyalists. Their arrogance, born of recent success, is a tangible force in the chamber. They walk right into it.
Anya's immediate goal is to maintain her facade of a broken, desperate woman, to draw them into the heart of her plan right before the Sunstone. Darius, concealed in an alcove with Marcus and their few remaining warriors, is a coiled serpent, his weakened state a carefully constructed illusion. Anya stands before the Sunstone, her hands clasped, her head bowed. She allows her fear to show the very real terror that still churns within her. But now, the source notes, it is a tool, not a master. She's using her fear.
"You wanted to speak," she says, her voice trembling convincingly as her sibling approaches, their lips curved in a triumphant smirk. "About Darius, about my place in your new order." The tension is a living thing, coiling tighter with every beat of her heart. She can feel her siblings' smug satisfaction, their dismissal of her as a spent force, adding to the pressure. They underestimate her completely.
As they speak, Anya begins to weave her power, drawing on her empathy and her newly awakened shifter abilities. She uses it not as a shield, but as a subtle, pervasive current. She focuses on the Sunstone, on the ancient energies of the chamber, and then outward towards the Lycans, present not just her siblings' guard, but crucially, the hidden loyalists of Darius and any who might be wavering. She doesn't project accusations, but the truth itself, the raw pain of Darius's torment under the poison and chains, the chilling ambition of her sibling, the unvarnished deceit that had fractured their kingdom. The source describes this as a delicate, dangerous dance, a silent battle of wills played out on an empathic plane. It's all about empathy now.
She feels the first flicker of confusion from one of her siblings' guards, a subtle wavering in their loyalty, as the undeniable truth of her siblings' twisted motives touches them. The trap is being sprung. The point of direct confrontation is imminent. It's working.
The air crackles with building power. The sun stain seems to brighten significantly, and from the shadows, Darius lets out a low, rumbling growl that is anything but weak, signaling he is free and ready. Showtime.
The Sunstone Chamber is instantly transformed, pulsing now with a malevolent energy from the sibling clashing with the chamber's ancient power. Anya faces her sibling directly. The air is thick with the scent of ozone from clashing powers and the bitter tang of betrayal. Her sibling breathes an aura of twisted, dark ambition, sneering one last time, still playing the martyr little sister, still clinging to that broken king, still so arrogant.
Anya's goal is singular, burning with a white-hot intensity. Win, protect Darius, protect their future. Every emotion she possesses, fury at her siblings' cruelty, a deep, aching sorrow for the kin she had lost to this madness, a fierce, unwavering love for Darius, and a grim determination born of survival coalesces into a formidable resolve. She's ready.
She feels Darius at her back, a solid, reassuring presence. His power, though still recovering from the poison and chains, is a potent counterpoint to her own. His beast is no longer a caged storm, but a focused weapon, its energy intertwined with his, both thrumming with the strength of their fated bond, ready to fight as one. They are a unit now.
The battle is joined. The source describes it as a brutal, desperate dance of power and will. Her sibling wields shadows and illusions, their attacks designed to cripple and confuse, to prey on doubt and fear. But Anya, anchored by her love for Darius and the unwavering truth she projects with her empathy, meets them head-on.
She unleashes her fully realized shifter abilities, a surge of protective energy that blazes like silver fire around them, and a heightened instinct that allows her to anticipate her siblings' treacherous moves. More than that, she uses her empathy not as a passive shield, but as a piercing light, projecting the truth of her siblings' twisted motives, their lust for power, out into the chamber, aiming it at their few remaining loyalists whose own empathic senses, however dulled, could not entirely ignore the raw, undeniable waves of deceit emanating from the sibling, amplified by the Sunstone. The source shows doubt flicker and grow in the eyes of the siblings' guards as they felt the cold, empty core of the ambition they served compared to the fierce, true bond of Darius and Anya. The truth is her weapon.
Darius moves with lethal grace, his Lycan form a blur of controlled fury, his attacks precise, empowered by the symbiotic strength of their bond. He's not just fighting for his throne, but for his mate, for their shared life, his beast raging with protective fury intertwined with his will. He's fighting for everything.
Anya makes a desperate gamble mentioned in the source. She reaches out with her empathy one last time towards her sibling, not to attack, but to find even a flicker of the person they once were, the family connection she mourned. She finds nothing but a hollow, aching void, consumed by a hunger that could never be filled, confirming they are truly lost. There's nothing left to save there.
With a final combined surge of power, Darius's raw, primal strengths now fully unleashed, and Anya's cleansing, empathic fire amplified by the Sunstone and their bond, they shatter her siblings' dark defenses. Together.
The source notes they don't kill the sibling. Instead, their power is stripped away, their web of lies exposed to the harsh, unwavering light of the Sunstone and the collective awareness of those present. Her sibling crumples, no longer a fearsome heir, but a diminished, bitter figure. Their brief reign of terror is over, defeated by truth.
A moment of stunned silence descends, broken only by ragged breathing and the fading crackle of power. The immediate threat is neutralized. Darius is beside her in an instant, his arms steel band around her waist, holding her close. Their victory is a raw, aching reality. Hard won. They did it.
The immediate aftermath, as described in the source, is a chaotic symphony of relief and exhaustion. The Sunstone Chamber, moments before a crucible of dark power and desperate struggle, now feels strangely quiet, the ancient crystal pulsing with a calm, steady light. Anya leans heavily against Darius, his regained strength, a welcome anchor. It's over.
Her sibling, now stripped of their stolen power and charisma by the defeat and the chamber's influence, is a sullen, defeated figure. The force states they are quickly and efficiently taken into custody by Darius's most loyal guards. Their dark mutterings are lost in the grim efficiency of their removal. Imprisonment, perhaps banishment, awaits them a fate. Darius will decide with his council, but one that will ensure they can never threaten their peace again. Justice of a sort. Anya's gaze sweeps over the chamber. A few of Darius's loyalists are wounded, as are some of her siblings' former guards, who had, in the final moments, faltered under the weight of the truth she had projected. Her goal shifts immediately, the source notes, to healing, to mending what had been broken in the fight, back to being a healer.
With a gentle touch and a weary sigh, she moves among them, Lycan and human alike. Her empathic gift, combined with her newfound shifter vitality, is now a soothing balm, easing pain, knitting torn flesh with an unexpected potency. The source shows her stepping into her role as healer and queen simultaneously, embracing both sides.
Darius watches her, his golden eyes, no longer clouded by poison or the beast's unchecked rage, now filled with an emotion so profound it makes her heart ache with a mixture of joy and the lingering sorrow for the sibling she truly had lost to ambition. It's complex.
Once the wounded are tended to, Darius addresses the assembled court. His voice, though still bearing a trace of weariness from the ordeal, rings with its customary authority, yet softened by a new warmth that the source describes. He stands before them not just as their king, but as the male who had fought for his mate and his kingdom, side by side with her. A different kind of king now.
He declares, his gaze sweeping over the Lycans, his hand finding Anya and lacing their fingers together, a public affirmation of their bond, that the shadows that sought to divide them have been banished. The forgotten heir's treachery has been laid bare by the light of the Sunstone and truth, making it official.
His eyes then settle on Anya, a fierce pride evident in their depths. "This is Anya," he states, as quoted in the source, whose courage and unique gifts were instrumental in this victory. He reminds the court she came to them as a debt paid, but she stands before them now as my fated mate, my queen, the savior of our court and kingdom. A powerful declaration.
A ripple of murmurs goes through the assembled Lycans, but this time the source emphasizes, Anya senses no fear or suspicion directed at her, only a dawning respect and, for some, awe at the display of their combined power and the truth she projected. The political situation, so recently fraught with peril, begins to stabilize under the weight of his words and the undeniable evidence of the battle. Their bond is publicly, irrevocably affirmed. Their future, once a terrifying uncertainty, now feels like a path they would walk together, stronger for the trials they had endured. A new beginning.
Weeks bleed into months, and a fragile peace settles over the northern Fang territory, nurtured, the source tells us, by the combined strength and compassion of its king and new queen. Things start to heal.
Anya, no longer a captive or a hidden secret, has fully embraced her role. The opulent court, once a place of terror, now feels like home in a way she never could have anticipated. Her empathy, once a gift she feared would be her undoing, is now her greatest strength, allowing her to connect with the Lycan people, to understand their needs, their ancient traditions, and to help Darius rule with a wisdom and fairness that begins to heal the fractures her siblings' treachery had caused. She found her place.
The Lycans, in turn, have come to respect, even love, their human-born queen, whose gentle heart belied a fierce spirit and an uncanny understanding of their kind, an understanding granted by her unique empathic nature. They accept her.
Darius, too, is transformed. The constant isolating battle with his beast has found a new equilibrium with Anya by his side. Her mere presence is a soothing balm to the ancient entity. The savage rage, the source implies, has tempered into a controlled protective power directed outward. The curse, as he'd once seen it, now feels more like an accepted, integral part of him, a source of strength drawn from his bond with Anya, not just torment. He's found balance.
He is still the formidable Lycan King, but the cold, calculating ruler has been softened by love. His capacity for intimacy, once feared because of the beast, is now a precious gift he shares only with her. He's changed too.
They find their peace, their joy, in stolen moments of quiet reflection, in the passionate depths of their connection. Their days are filled with the duties of rulers, their nights with the discovery of a love that had been forged in fire and betrayal. Anya feels a sense of belonging, of purpose, that she had never imagined possible in her quiet village life. She's truly found herself.
The source ends with a scene of peace. One evening, as a silver moon casts its glow over the snow-dusted peaks visible from their chamber balcony, Darius pulls her close, his arms a familiar, comforting weight around her. The scent of pine, of winter, and of him Lycan and man is the scent of her deepest contentment. A beautiful final image. "I should have known," she murmurs, her head resting against his strong chest, her hand covering his where it lay on her arm, the warmth of his beast's power, a familiar thrum beneath her touch. "All those whispers of your beast, the fear in the court." The source quotes her smiling softly as she concludes, "They were merely the cries of a soul aching for a touch mine was destined to give." She understands now. He tilts her chin up, his golden eyes, now filled only with love and a possessive tenderness that still makes her heart leap, meet hers. "And yours, Anna," he rumbles, his voice thick with emotion, as quoted in the source, "was the only touch that could ever have reached it." Mutual understanding, mutual need.
He kisses her then, a final, beautiful detail from the source, a promise of their shared future. It's a deeply satisfying resolution. The woman once sold to the Lycan King, feared for her difference, not only tamed his beast, but truly claimed his heart, becoming his equal, his queen, his everything, validating that her unique nature was her ultimate strength. Quite the journey.
And so, that brings us to the end of the documented events in this particular source. We've followed Anya's journey from a quiet village healer burdened by debt, fearing her own nature, to the fated mate and queen of a powerful Lycan King, with that very nature being the key to their survival and victory. It's a complete arc.
It's quite a ride through this narrative. We saw her perceived vulnerability, her empathic gift, turn out to be her greatest strength and the key to unlocking a much deeper reality for both her and King Darius. And we witnessed how external threats and internal struggles were inextricably linked, overcome not just by power, but by connection and truth.
Indeed. The source details how her connection didn't just heal physical wounds, but address the core torment within the king, and how their combined strengths, their fated bond, ultimately overcame betrayal and political machinations rooted in twisted ambition. It really challenges the idea of where true strength lies.
What does this all mean for understanding this source? It leaves us with a powerful reflection, doesn't it? This story, as presented in the source, fundamentally challenges the idea of what constitutes strength and weakness. It suggests that perhaps the most profound connections, the ones that can truly reshape a world and defeat power, rooted in deceit, come not from brute force or impenetrable control, but from understanding, empathy, and the courage to embrace one's unique nature, even when it's initially feared, and allowing oneself to be vulnerable to love.
It raises an important question for you to consider as you reflect on this source. Are the things we perceive as our greatest vulnerabilities sometimes the very source of our most extraordinary and world-changing power? Something to think about.
A thought to mull over as you go about your day. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We hope it's given you a clear and insightful look into this fascinating source material.